Hello and welcome back to the Eternal Soul podcast and welcome to this special conversation. Today we are at the beginning of Navratri, the 9 sacred nights dedicated to the divine feminine, the Devi. Each day, each night carries its own vibrations, a step in an inner journey. From invoking courage and strength to compassion and wisdom, to the final victory of light over darkness on the Dashmi, that is Dashera. But what do these days truly signify beyond the celebrations, the rituals, and everything? What was the inner meaning in the ancient world where they were first observed? Today, we have with us someone who remembers, Dena Merriam, a spiritual visionary and an author who has lived through these times in her previous lives. With her, we will explore not just history but memory, not just devotion but her lived experience. So, over the next 9 days, as millions of people around the world turn to honor the Devi, I want to ask Dena, what does she call as to awaken within ourselves today? So, without much further ado, I'd like to invite Dena Merriam to this very special episode on understanding what is the inner meaning of the 9 days of the Devi. Hello, Dena, and welcome back to the podcast, The Eternal Self. I'm very, very excited about today's topic and to hear it literally from the horse's mouth. Somebody who has memories of the time when it actually happened.
It's a very special time for me, these 9 days, because we have other times of the year, Shivaratri, when we worship Shiva, although for me that's always Shiva and Parvati together. And even on Ram Navami, to me it's always Ram and Sita together. But this is a time when we really focus on the Shakti energy, the what we call the feminine aspect of the divine consciousness. And for some people, they take the Devi who's closest to them. So for many people, it's 9 days of Durga, different aspects of Durga. But I always look at it as the different aspects of the divine a divine mother. So we have Narayani, we have Saraswati, and then we have Parvati or Durga, Durga I usually look at. And so for me, I like to really immerse myself in the different energies of those Devis.
Beautiful. So before we go into the energy aspect of things, Dina, I'm quite curious to hear a little bit more about some vivid memories, if at all vivid, or how you see it. But how was the spirit in Ayodhya at that time? Or was Ayodhya at that time not aware of what was going on down south with Sri Lanka and all of those things? So give us a little bit of a flavor of how do you recall that actual event.
So in my new book, Sita's Yoga, the Yoga of Awakening, I go into greater detail about Treta Yuga because we can't look at that time period as having the same consciousness that we have now. We've just emerged from Kali Yuga into the early century of Dwapara Yuga, which lasts for 2,000 years. So it's a slow collective awakening as we spin through our galaxy and encounter different energies and periods of deeper spiritual perception, periods of lesser. Although at all times there are those who are self-realized, obviously, and at all times there are those who are earlier in their journey. But I tried to describe in this new book what Treta Yuga consciousness was like. Because we want to know what it was like in Mithila or Ayodhya, we have to know what Treta Yuga consciousness was like, which was much less focused on the material world. So they say in Satya Yuga, which is the highest yuga, the unity consciousness. So you don't see yourself as separate. You're part of spirit, and you perceive beyond the material world. You can see into the other realities, and it's unity consciousness. But over time, that unity consciousness begins to diminish. So by the time you get to Treta Yuga, it's already somewhat diminished. So the wise people of that era, the rishis, were devising ways to hold on to that consciousness. That's where the mantras come in. They were able to draw from the ether sacred sounds that helped them regain unity consciousness. So the mantras were not used to manipulate the material world at first. It was to get themselves into that unity consciousness. And over time, even that diminished, and the mantras began to be used for affecting material change. Bringing rains, stopping rains, cursing, blessing for material benefit or disadvantage, or to help control the material world. So by the time Ram and Sita are born, which is toward the end of the Treta Yuga, in the last, I mean, we have to think in thousands of years. Maybe the last, this Treta Yuga began around 6,000 BC, ends around 3,000 BCE. So Ram and Sita, if they're born around 4,000 BCE, then that's toward the end of the Treta Yuga, where a lot of spiritual capability is lost, and yet they were still able to perceive more than we perceive. So it is said in Treta Yuga that people overcome the limitations of time, which means they can see the past more easily and see the future more easily. So, rebirth and karma, those were all accepted realities. And one could see a person's past more easily. And so you could understand why things were happening. And so in terms of Ravana, they could, the more advanced people of that age, Ram and Sita certainly could see his past, could know his past, and understand. So you had much more understanding of why things are happening the way they do, because you can see causes. By the time we get to Dwapara Yuga, you just see the effects. We don't live in a consciousness of knowing causes. We may accept karma, but do we know? We can't see what led to our conditions of today. Most of us, of
Yes.
course, some of us can gain that ability. And so that was what Treta Yuga was, a much, in many ways, less materialistic life. And what Ravana was doing was inserting into the collective new forms of behavior, lust, greed. Those were not things that really existed up until then. But he was inserting that into the collective, the desire for power, the desire for material wealth. And there's in my new book a point when Sita goes to when she goes to Lanka, she's shocked at the amount of wealth because Mithila has been a very they glorified simplicity. I mean, to live a simple life in harmony with nature, that was the ideal. Ayodhya was a larger kingdom and more powerful, so there was more, but nothing compared to Lanka. This lust for wealth and possessions was unknown. And so that's the beginning. That's the beginning, which has led to where we are today, where the lust for wealth and power is rather commonplace, right? So we have to now return and move, evolve beyond that. And so I think there are a lot of lessons as we look to the declining consciousness. Now we're in an ascending period. So what are we to emulate? So I'm finding a lot of teachings coming from looking at consciousness of Treta Yuga, much more harmonious, much less disruptive. It was a rare thing to have a disruptive figure, which is why Ravana was such a threat, because he was a rarity.
But in today's time, that's not so much of a rarity, but like that level of consciousness of thinking beyond the self is the rarity at this point in Kali Yuga.
So there was a much more a sense of being part of the collective and the collective good. So in the story, Sita's yoga, um, there's no wanting. There's not even ownership of land. That's an unknown concept. Ownership.
Yeah.
Ownership is not something that's given much weight. Actually, it's what's of importance is maintaining harmony and balance, and within the family, within individuals. And so there are many examples in the story where, and it's also what I feel the avatars do when they take birth. There are multiple reasons why they take birth, right? To help the evolution of society, to set a direction, but also to help individuals work through their karma, to finish certain karmas. And Sita's continually doing that with those around her who are needing guidance, helping them work through, resolve their unfinished karma. And if you I see that with my own guru. That's exactly what he does with each one of us. Now he can't so my guru is not here, but even he's not physically present. But when he was physically present, he had to work internally because with the thousands of devotees, he couldn't openly, outwardly guide their working through of karma, but inwardly he could. And there's no difference then whether he's on the physical plane or not. And you can say the same thing of Sita or any of the manifestations. It doesn't matter whether in the physical plane or not. As soon as you put your energy there, your attention there, you're in relationship. And their goal is to help you work through your unresolved karma.
Beautiful. It's very deep and I'm getting it. Wow. I need to pause a little. I get it. So, Dina, going back to the 9 days, like we've grown up seeing a lot of enactments of Ramayana happening in the neighborhood. That's how we grew up. There was a little nip in the air at this time of back in the days at this time of the year, and we would go and look at Ramayana, the every day of the 9 days. Some places in India they have these dance celebrations, dandiyas, and a lot of huge celebrations around that. So I think most of the people really get busy with all of these kind of ritualistic or celebratory kind of activities. But what exactly, from a soul evolution perspective, what would you say? What are these 9 days? One, why are they so potent? You can feel it. They are potent. Or maybe it's just collective consciousness now. I don't know. But it just feels very special, these 9 days. And my question is that what exactly is one supposed to, how do you access the energy of these days to your fullest, spiritual evolution perspective?
This is the deeper meaning. Outward festivals are fine up until a point, but to really gain the benefit from any sacred days, and I think those days, because those days have been set aside for so many centuries and millennia, access is easier. It's just like when you go to on pilgrimage to a sacred place, so much reverence has been devoted to those places. Access is easier. They're like portals. Well, days are like portals too. So for me, what these days are for is deep introspection, reflection on what it is you want to work on.
Yes.
What you need to resolve in yourself. Is it a relationship? Is it a work issue? Is it a habit? Is it a pattern of behavior? What is it you really need help with? The things that you try and try and try and you can't resolve, if it's a troubled relationship or it's a work situation, this is a time to go deep into reflecting on that and calling upon whichever Devi is closest to you to help you gain the insight or the strength or the willpower or whatever it is you need to resolve that issue within yourself. So it's the outer celebration shouldn't take away from the inner work. The inner work is really what this is about.
Yeah.
And if we overlook that, then we've missed the opportunity. So, and that's not easy to do that kind of introspection, because you have to look at yourself objectively. You have to sort of separate yourself and look at yourself and say, these are the things I've been struggling with this year, and I really need some help. And for the 9 full days, I mean, the benefit is not just one day, like Shivratri's one day of celebration, Ram Navami. This is 9 days to go deeper into that. and to really look at all the different aspects of the Devi, which one can help you, because different aspects can help you do certain things, you know? If you need that strength, that ferocity, call upon Durga. If you need that overwhelming love energy, call on call the Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi. And if you need that creative energy to break through, you call upon Saraswati, you know? Um, the different aspects of this powerful feminine energy that can help you get to the other side of whatever it is you're struggling with.
Right. And I've also heard, Dina, that I don't know if I'm right or something that I'm recollecting, that the first 3 days are of Saraswati, then the 3 days of Narayani, and then the 3 days of Durga. Or is there something like that? And also each day
No,
there
I
is,
used to follow that. I used to follow that, but I've stopped following that. And whatever sort of moves me is what I follow. So today, first day of Navratri, I did a reading from the new book about Sita, uh, uh, because I'm so absorbed in it right now. I mean, I'm just in the final days of that book, and so I'm very much so. I'll do a few days of Sita, and then I'll move into Durga, and uh, and then I'll probably end with Saraswati, um, because it's all you need. You need all different aspects. I mean, you need that powerful energy, the willpower. You need the creative energy to break through, and you also need the overwhelming love that is generated from Narayani.
yes, yes. And also on that point, Dina, there's every day also is assigned to a certain form of Devi. Like day one is, and it's all in Durga Kavacham, I think, where it said that Shail Putri is the first day, and then each day is the name of the energy of that day. So does it help that on that particular day to channelize or into that form of the Devi, or is it just like I'm going to get wrapped up in all of these things instead of just focusing on connecting to the energy?
I think if you can't find the intuitive attunement, then there's nothing wrong with following the ritual.
Hmm.
That's sort of ritualistic.
Yes.
But if you have that intuitive attunement, there's no need to follow the ritual of doing this day for this Devi, this day for that Devi,
Yes.
because the whole point of these 9 days is to go deep into what you need to work on and to call upon the Devi that you are feeling connected to. If you
Yes.
want to do 9 days for Durga, if you need really to awaken that willpower and that strength energy, that ferocity to overcome the challenges, you can do 9 days devoted to her,
Yes.
to that aspect.
Yes.
So I think there's no one rule about it. I think each person will find their own way of making the most of this period of deep reflection and alignment, because what we're doing is awakening those energies within ourselves.
Yes. 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 And in terms of Tina, in terms of awakening those energies within ourselves, besides meditation and mantra and whatever people believe in their rituals, doing all of those things, are there any other specific actions which become more potent on these 9 days? Like,
I think visualization is very important. I think hearing stories about the Davies is very important. And I think, but most important, is opening up a conversation,
wow.
beginning a conversation. In other words, we should look at these manifestations as friends. I mean, I don't even like to use the word worship because worship it means separation. There's an other out there.
Yeah.
To me, it's they are guides and friends. And if you don't have an intimate relationship, it's about forming an intimate relationship. There's so many instances when I write about Sita, where Sita she approaches each one as a friend, not somebody to be put on a pedestal and worshipped. I am your friend, your eternal friend. And that's how we need to think of them, not as, oh, but as embracing them as a friend who has come to help you. in whatever way you need it, in whatever way you need, that friend is there to embrace and help you.
There has been so much conditioning in the brain, and you're so right. Once you put somebody out there and yourself out there, you're always filtering how you're having that dialogue with that person. It's either, it's like, oh, should I be asking for something? No, I should not be asking for something. Should I just be thanking for everything? It's all the dialogue goes on around here only. If you know, if you don't actually, what you have just said, it's so powerful.
And that's why I naturally began referring to Sita or Narayani as Mata,
Yeah.
because I don't want there to be any distance, and that's a huge shift from seeing the Devi as an external rather than an internal presence.
But actually, Dina, I've been starting to feel for some time now that even Mata or something would be outside of you. It is all about understanding that it has to be activated within. That is that
Like,
the breath, the light, the fact that the minute the breath will go away, this will just start like decaying. That means that it is that spirit that needs to come fully alive, and the spirit is the goddess or the consciousness or whatever.
exactly, exactly. We are that. And the whole purpose of the guru, the Devi, the higher beings is to help us see that, help us realize that. And so there's no looking externally, it's all internal. And so, different things at different stages in your journey. So for many people at the stage that they're at, doing different kind of external rituals and celebrations may be appropriate. But then as you go deeper, you want to awaken that energy within yourself and awaken what you need to clear away issues, karmas, samskaras that you're dealing with. The whole purpose of these continual rebirths is the samskaras, these seeds that we carry with us that need to be cleared before we can ascend higher.
Beautiful, Dina. We've covered so much ground in this one session. I think you've opened your heart and given away so much. Like I get it. And Dina, for the people who are watching, who are going to be watching this, what would be your words for them for these 9 days? And if people do want to understand what do they have to do? Because that's where humanity, we as humans are stuck with like, what do I have to do?
Sit with the Devi, sit together when you do your meditation. Sit with the Devi in whatever form she appears to you. She can have any name, because name and form, we all have many names and forms. How many names have we had? How many forms have we had? And so, in whatever name or form she appears to you, sit with her and enter into a deep friendship and intimate relationship by talking with her. Make her your companion. For these, at least if you make her your companion for these 9 days, she will stay with you. She won't leave.
Wow.
So here is an opportunity to really form that relationship. And it's all about relationship, forming that relationship with that one who resides within, but who we have difficulty accessing.
And this can be done in any form, like either sit in meditation and have
For
that inner dialogue, write it down and have that inner dialogue, or how else, like
you
an
can have
internal
that inner
dialogue.
dialogue when you're walking. You can have the inner dialogue. I mean, meditation is good because you're not distracted, but it should continue well beyond your meditation. It should continue throughout the day. So if you begin the day with that being in relationship, sitting with the Devi, and then try to keep that up throughout the day. At moments, you get distracted with whatever work you have to do, but bring your mind back. Ah, she's here with me. She's here with me. How could she not be? Where
Yes,
is it to go?
yes, yes. And like, say for example, if somebody feels, well, is it just my own mind playing, one side and the other side? Is it just my own imagination and everything? How does one dispel that kind of doubt?
What is the imagination?
Imagination is that, yeah,
What is
imagination
the
is.
imagination? You begin by visualizing, you begin by using that particular faculty to help put you into that kind of relationship. But then it goes beyond that. So the imagination is a useful tool, a very useful tool. We shouldn't think it's not valid. I mean, the rational mind is just a very small part of who we are. So the imagination is a very important tool to help us get beyond the rational mind.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, there's a whole discussion to be had about that, about the imagination and how it can be used.
I would love to have that. Maybe that's a topic for the next time because seriously, people with very strong rational minds, I've been doing things for so many years, but my rational mind is so very active and strong that I always want logic behind everything that can go into the creative or imaginative side. So, yes.
You can't reach. There's many, many stories in this new book about that.
Okay.
Because you're stuck at a certain point. If you're just dealing in the rational mind, you can't get beyond the physical. You can't access. The rational mind only deals with physical reality. It doesn't get beyond. So, in order to get beyond physical reality, you need to strengthen your other faculties. The intuitive faculty is very important. And in the higher yugas, the rational mind was less active and the intuitive faculty was more active. So that was another thing about Treta Yuga, where the intuitive faculty was much more active. It was an intuitive age, really, and the rational mind was secondary. And now the rational mind is primary, and we have to move to strengthening our intuitive faculty again if we want to penetrate beyond the physical world.
Yes, yes. On that topic, Dina, I'm just recalled of a little bit of a personal experience. I keep it short, but basically there was around 2022 or 2023, I did a lot of workshops with the Monroe Institute. If you've heard of the Monroe Institute, the people who worked with CIA and, stuff like that. So I did some advanced courses with them and I started to develop, like, maybe because of so many other things that I've done, but finally, I managed to find the person who was the person working with the CIA. He's probably well in his 80s now, but I managed to track him down. The person who was teaching these intuitive abilities inside of the Monroe Institute. So I looked him up on LinkedIn and I messaged him that, I think I'm tapping into something. I'd love to get trained under you to develop these super brain powers and everything. And he wrote back saying that I would have loved to help you, but insanity leaves me exhausted. So then I got very worried that the minute I'm going to go dive into these siddhis and additional powers, I mean, who would like this person who had developed these things is now dealing with insanity at a senile age, but still,
If you're not ready, I mean, I think that it happens organically as you progress in your meditations. Organically, it happens. You know, it's like people who try to force the past life recall, go into, all kinds of hypnosis and all of that.
yes,
It, it, I believe that all of these things should happen organically, rather than pursuing, because then you're yearning after something, right?
yes,
You know, why if something, I mean, how is it useful? How is it useful in terms of your spiritual journey, right? But there are ways that you can. I mean, we all have an intuitive faculty. It's a matter of acknowledging it. So often we just either ignore it or suppress it.
suppress it. And my question is, a lot of people are probably in that same situation where they're getting snippets of those experiences but are suppressing it because you don't know how far deep and how extensive, and are you going to lose ground completely, or how do you actually, where do you go from there?
Very true. I have encountered people along the way who are definitely off in the deep end. And look, there are dangers on the spiritual path, which is why you need to be very grounded. One needs to be grounded, and having duties that you have to fulfill, whether it's in your household or your work, helps to ground you.
Yes,
That's one of the things it does, is helps keep you present in the here and now. And there's a lot of skill involved in being able to transcend and also be present. In
yes,
other words, if you're not grounded here, you can go off into all kinds of places, right? And get very unbalanced,
yes,
which is why we need to keep coming back. to what we need to do right now in front of us, to our duties here, to help us stay balanced. It's a balancing act.
Yes. Beautiful, Dina. I
There's a
think,
lot more to be said about this.
oh, okay. So shall we continue it in the next podcast then?
I'll continue it. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's focus for the next week also on further reflections on Navratri, and then we can get more into this in the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's beautifully going in the direction that I always wanted it to go into, but it's just a natural progression. Thank you so much, Dina, for your time today, and lovely talking as always.
Next time.
Yes,
Much love.
much
Bye
love.
bye.
Thank you. Bye now.